What's up, lawn crew? I'm just going to do a real quick video on how to do a real basic cleaning of a carburetor on a two-stroke engine. This is not going to be a comprehensive video, but I had a couple people asking about how to fix something that wasn't starting, so this is real basic procedure. So first thing you want to do is take your air cover off. This is specific to the Echo SRM225 or any other Echo, but the basic procedures are pretty much more or less the same, except the, there's going to be some variances, obviously, depending on the design and everything. So, air filter, make sure it's clean. Either clean it or replace it. You can blow it out with some air, whatever you need to do. That just sits inside there. Replace it if it's dirty. Replace the spark plug. If you're trying to get your thing started and it's not working, check to make sure your choke works. That is off. That is choke on. For this, you're going to need a T25 Torx bit. And these two screws hold the carburetor and the air box all together. So this just comes right out like this. Unscrew it. So once those screws come out, make sure you just hold on to everything. There's going to be a gasket back here. If that falls off, just make sure you don't lose that, otherwise you'll have to replace the rubber gasket. Go ahead and separate this, keeping the screws together so you don't lose it. Just set the assembly aside. Now, I'm not going to actually clean this because it's a brand new machine, but for the purposes of a demonstration, you can leave this hooked up if you'd like, but there's going to be two fuel lines here. The one in the back is the supply. The one in the front is the return. So whenever you push the primer, it sucks fuel up through the back line, goes through the carburetor, fills it, and the excess goes back through this tube. So make sure you disconnect these when you're going to service this. So remember, on this particular model, black is on the back. That's how I remembered it. Now on this particular model, and really this applies to any Zama carburetor that's on any Echo machine, there is a little plug on the back here, which I will show you. I'll try to get a good shot of this for you. If you can kind of see right here, in between this crack here on the primer bulb housing, there is a little tiny screw right there in the middle. What that does is that actually adjusts your high jet. So that is when you're going wide open throttle on the trigger. That will adjust the air to fuel mixture, turning it left, or I guess that would be counterclockwise, turning it out this way will make the mixture more rich. In other words, more gas, less air. Turning it in will make the mixture more lean. So you don't want to lean it out too much, or you could over rev the engine and cause trouble. That's probably why they actually plug this up from the factory. So what I did is I got my screw gun and a tiny little screw that I thought would fit as close as possible. And it's kind of pointed on the end there, you can see. That little brass plug, there's like a little piece of plastic in the middle. That was actually stuck on the inside here, blocking that plug. So what I did is I just took this screw, and it's a self-tapping screw with the pointy tip there, and I just drove it in with a screw gun until it stopped. I didn't over-tighten it, so I was just going real slow, real gentle with a little bit of back pressure on the screw gun until it grabbed. And then I took a pliers and just yanked it out. And that's pretty much all there was to get that out. So if you have an Echo and you need to adjust the carburetor, that's the process of how you get to that. But be warned, remove these 4 screws first for the primer, and then there's one more screw in the middle there. Remove that, and then the entire primer housing along with this white plastic here and the black gasket that's behind it will all come apart. And then you can access that. So just make sure you remove this first. And that's pretty much all there is to that procedure. Now you'll also want to remove this if you're going to be cleaning this. So what I do is just get a bottle of carb cleaner like this. Remove these 4 screws, take this out, squirt some carb cleaner in this mechanism, flip your carburetor around, And you can see that there is some stuff to clean on the inside here. Squirt some carb cleaner inside that hole and all the other little cracks and crevices in there. Once the primer mechanism and housing is removed, there's going to be some more like crevices and things. Just take the straw end from the carb cleaner, shoot it inside all those holes. Do the same thing on the front side here. You're going to want to shoot some carb cleaner into the throttle body here. And just get all of that cleaned out and all that gunk freed up. So when I pull the trigger, you can see that opening there. That is the throttle. So that's partial throttle, full throttle. So if you look closely inside there, I'm not sure if you can really see inside there, but there is a little brass fitting that goes parallel through there, and that is one of the jets that meters the gas flow. So you want to get that straw that's in there from the carb cleaner can, and you're going to want to direct some of that into the hole and really get that gunk cleaned out. If you've got a small pin, you can probably even pick around inside the crevices, just like a wire or something, a thin wire, and just get all that stuff cleaned out. So this is brand new. It's obviously not dirty yet, so I'm not going to actually do it, but I'm just showing you, how to do that. And then if you're still having trouble starting, you could shoot some carb cleaner into here as well, and just to get all the gunk that's inside. Actually, seafoam. If you've got seafoam spray, that would work perfect. I've got some of that here. Seafoam spray. They make this in a liquid as well that you can just pour into your gas tank or crankcase in a 4-stroke. But this spray actually comes out in a high pressure stream, so you can direct the flow wherever you want it to go. So shoot some in there. You can shoot some in here. And that's pretty much all you got to do. Just let it soak for about 10 minutes or so. Wipe it all down. Get a paper towel. Just wipe off all the dirt and everything. I should have said that before I even took it apart. If you've got an air compressor or a brush or something, just wipe everything clean so you don't get any dirt where it shouldn't be, which you're probably going to have grass and dirt anyway because it's a string trimmer and this thing kicks up a lot of dirt when you're using it. So once you get everything all cleaned, front side, back side, primer mechanism, get all those areas cleaned out. In fact, if you pull these fuel lines off, you just wiggle it and give it a yank, they'll both come out. Take that straw from the carb cleaner and shoot it up inside here and just get it circulating real good. And then that's pretty much all there is to it to clean it up. And then we're going to reassemble it. All right, make sure you get those wires out of the way. There's the ignition wires. Just push that to the side. Line everything up. Make sure the gaskets are all back in place. So when you take this apart, here there's a gasket, and then there's a little diaphragm, little plastic diaphragm on the inside of that primer mechanism. So make sure you get all those lined up properly. There's some holes that you line it up with, and then just line it up perfectly. When you take it apart, just stack them on top of each other, and then when you put it back together, everything's the way it should be. Make sure all the gaskets are in place. Line up the screws like this. And I like to push that tight, and this body right here is going to be loose, so we'll just hold that in place by hand, clamping like this, and then I'll just thumb tighten it to get it started so it's held in place. Alright, now just double check, gaskets are all good. We'll go ahead and tighten it up. I like to apply back pressure right here just to make sure that that gasket doesn't get crunched or pinched or anything. So as you're screwing in, and this is a T25 Torx bit if I hadn't mentioned that before. Yours might be like Phillips head or something if it's a steel. I don't know what size bits they use, but the process is more or less the same.
Okay, this is good.
Make sure those wires are out of the way, everything's all connected. Don't want to over tighten it. There, that's tight. We'll just give it another quick turn there. I'm just real loosely. It's not loose, but it's snug. And that's pretty much all there is to it. If you need to adjust your idle, there is this screw right here that actually applies pressure towards this wire here. So if you screw that in, that screw will go further. It'll actually push the wire forward. You see how I'm moving that forward with the trigger right now? It'll move that forward like that. If you screw this clockwise in, so that way this end of it is actually coming out further, that'll make it idle a lot faster because it's actually pushing on the throttle a little bit and opening up the throttle like that. So you get a high idle like that. But my idle's good, I'm not going to touch it. So on the top here, this is your low idle speed screw. This one is adjustable, so you need to get a screwdriver that fits inside that hole. I can't tell exactly what size it is, but your low speed, which is different from idle, but it's basically the fuel mixture between partial throttle and all the way up to mid throttle. And then your high jet screw, which is the one that's underneath here that I showed you earlier, that's your high speed screw. So that adjusts the maximum RPM for when you're actually wide open throttle. That's what that screw does compared to your low speed screw. So, don't adjust it out of spec too much. If you messed with it already, turn them in all the way until it's seated. Not tight, but just seated. So just turn it all the way in, and then turn it back out one turn, and then another half a turn. That'll be 1.5 turns out, and that should be pretty much where it should be set from the factory. Check the manual for your specific model, but usually carburetors are set either 1.25 turns out from factory or 1.5 turns out from factory settings. So once you get it back to factory settings, then you can go ahead and fine tune from there. So that's really all there is to it for tuning up a carburetor. I'm going to go ahead and put my air filter back on. So like I said, once you've cleaned your carburetor and you replaced your air filter, make sure that's in place. Replace your spark plug and make sure you got fresh fuel in there and mixed properly, 50-1 or whatever the machine calls for. And then try to fire it up and see where you're at. That should fix, 85% of your problems, plus or minus. It's usually because of a gummed up carburetor from bad fuel, if using fuel that had ethanol in it. So just by cleaning that carburetor out, you'll fix probably like a lot of majority of the problems, unless there's a compression issue. So that's pretty much how to fix and tune up and clean the intake side. One other thing quick before I go, I don't want to make this video too long, but I'm going to show you what to do with the exhaust side. So in order to get this housing, this is just a plastic cover, just to prevent you from getting burned. There's a couple of screws holding that in place. There's one screw here, and I believe there's one screw down here. That looks like it's a T25 as well. Let's verify that. That is a T25. One there, and I believe there's one more in the back. Yes, right there as well. So if you remove those 3 screws and pop the cover off of your spark plug, this whole housing should come right off. You might have to wiggle it and kind of move it around just in case there's like some plastic clips on there. That whole thing will just pop right off, and then you'll be able to get to your exhaust, your muffler. So to clean this, you can see there's already some gunk on there. I've only got a couple tanks through this, but it looks like there's also some T25 screws, 1, 2, 3. So what you want to do is remove those 3 screws. There's going to be this little metal plate back here. You can kind of see the outline of it. See that metal separation? There's a little tiny metal tab that's holding it in place. So once you remove those screws, you should be able to just slide it back this way, or it might slide this way, but yeah, those metal tabs are holding it in place. Just go ahead and slide it and see which way it moves. And then underneath there is a little like mesh screen, and that is actually considered the spark arrestor. So if you remove that, that's probably gunked up. Just see if you can clean that or replace it. And then, You just reassemble it. But basically, this, you can see it gets gummed up really good. You can just take your carb cleaner, actually, that I was using before, shoot that in there, and get all that cleaned up, but make sure it's going to drip all over the place, and just have a rag handy and wipe all that up. And that's pretty much all you got to do. Just get that as clean as you possibly can. And then try to start it and give it a go. Anyway, that's all I've got for today, so I hope you found this useful. Sorry I didn't do a complete teardown, but you know, I didn't want to get too into it because it is a brand new machine, so probably coming this fall, before I winterize it, I will do that. So, you know, please subscribe to this channel if you found this useful, if you want to see future videos on this machine and other types of product reviews and lawn care equipment. Leave a comment if you got any questions. Thanks for watching.